Imagine a crime scene where the evidence has been eaten. We are standing in the Kerameikos, the gateway to Athens, in 431 BCE. The air is thick, not just with the grief of a city burying its first war dead, but with the cloying, metallic scent of roasting fat and wine. Pericles has just finished his famous oration, praising a democracy where every man is equal. But as the crowd moves from the speaker's platform to the communal tables, the language of equality vanishes, replaced by the brutal logic of the plate. This isn't a celebratory wake, it is a calculated display of resource management. To the untrained eye, it looks like a gift, a massive, state-funded distribution of meat to thousands of citizens. But if we look closer at the cuts being served and who is leaning against the stone versus who is reclining on a couch, a different story emerges. This meal was the ultimate political theater, a tool used to mask a widening chasm between the elite, kaloi kagathoi, the beautiful and the good, and the thetes who rode the triremes. We are here to strip away the marble white myth of the Golden Age. By reconstructing the textures, the smells, and the gatekeeping of this specific feast, we are analyzing this historical menu as an autopsy of power. In the wake of Pericles' words, the isopoliteia, the equality of rights, is put to the ultimate sensory test. To understand the Athenian social autopsy, we have to look at the kriaton, the public distribution of meat. In a city where meat was a rare luxury for the average citizen, the state-sponsored slaughter of cattle wasn't just lunch, it was a political contract. As historian Robin Osborne points out, sacrifice was the primary mechanism through which the Athenian state communicated with its people. But the communication was tiered. While the thousands of thetes, landless laborers, queued for their boiled portions of tough, lean muscle, a second invisible menu was being prepared for the elite. This is where the social autopsy reveals the fracture lines of democracy. The public was given quantity, but the elite retained the splonchua, the vital organs like the heart, liver, and lungs. These were the noble parts, roasted quickly over the altar fire and consumed by the presiding officials and the wealthy families long before the masses ever tasted a scrap. If you were eating the splonchua, you were a participant in the divine. If you were waiting for the boiled neck meat, you were merely a beneficiary of the state. It was a ritualized form of resource control, disguised as a gift. The labor hierarchy here was staggering. To feed the thousands gathered for the funeral of the first war dead, the city required an army of megaroi, professional butchers and cooks who were often enslaved, or medics, resident aliens. These men operated in a high-pressure environment of blood and heat, where every cut of the animal was strictly accounted for. There was no chef's choice here. The anatomy of the cow mirrored the anatomy of the state. The knuckle went to the commoner, while the thigh bones, wrapped in fat, were burned for the gods, a symbolic gesture that conveniently left the best meat for those standing closest to the fire. The elite didn't just eat differently, they ate in different dimensions. While the public sat on the ground or stood in the dust of the Kerameikos, the kaloi kagathoi retreated to private symposia. Here, the menu shifted from the raw, bloody reality of the sacrifice to the sophisticated, spiced world of the Mediterranean elite. They consumed imported Archestratus-style delicacies, small birds, eels from Lake Copaeus, and wine tempered with honey and snow. This controlled excess served a specific political purpose. It signaled that while the law said all men were equal, the belly knew the truth. By providing a base level of protein to the masses, Pericles effectively bought the silence of the hungry, ensuring that the hierarchy remained unchallenged even as the city mourned its sons. This meal was the glue that held the Athenian Empire together, a systematic distribution of calories designed to maintain the status quo. To reconstruct this meal is to step into a sensory battlefield. My hands are tacky with a mixture of red wine, coarse salt, and the rendered fat of a sacrificial bull. In the modern kitchen, we view a steak as an isolated ingredient. In 431 BCE Athens, the Magieros viewed it as the final stage of a violent public performance. To recreate the splunctua, the inner organs reserved for the elite, I have to start with the liver and heart. There is a primal metallic resistance to the meat that demands a different kind of respect. The sage in me notes that according to Aristophanes, the charcoal used wasn't just fuel, it was often specifically white poplar or oak, providing a high-intensity heat that seared the exterior while leaving the copper-rich interior almost raw. The physical toll of this hospitality is what the history books omit. Imagine the heat of a Mediterranean summer, amplified by dozens of open-pit fires in the Kerameikos. The air is a thick soup of wood smoke and the sweet, cloying smell of knise, the roasting fat that the Greeks believed rose to feed the gods. As an explorer in this space, I am struck by the sheer exhaustion of the labor. To feed the citizen body after Pericles' speech, thousands of animals had to be flayed and butchered in a matter of hours. This wasn't slow food, it was a high-stakes assembly line production of protein. I am struggling just to keep 3 small skewers of liver from burning. The ancient cooks managed hundreds at once, their eyes stinging from the acrid smoke of burning hair and bone. The seasoning tells the story of the class divide. For the masses, the meat was boiled in massive bronze cauldrons, a process that masked the toughness of older draft animals and ensured every drop of fat was captured in a thin, watery broth. My recreation of this commoner's portion is humbling. It is bland, chewy, and functional. But for the elite VIP menu, I am using garon, the precursor to fermented fish sauce, silphium from Cyrene, and dried coriander. These imports weren't just flavors, they were material culture markers. Applying silphium, the spice so valuable it was eventually harvested to extinction, is a judgment call. Too much and the dish is ruined, too little and you haven't properly signaled your status. As I navigate the hidden objective of this menu, the difficulty becomes clear. The elite meal required time and specialized knowledge that a commoner simply didn't possess. While the Theet ate his boiled beef standing up, hurried by the crowd, the elite meal involved a daipmon, the meal, followed by a symposion, the drinking. I am preparing kotabos, a game played by flinging wine dregs at a target, and the preparation of the wine itself is a chore. It must be strained through linen to remove the resin and sediment, then mixed in a krater with precise ratios of water. To drink wine akratos, undiluted, was considered the mark of a barbarian or a madman. The sage observes that this dilution wasn't just about sobriety, it was about the aristocratic control of nature. Even the water had to be cool, often sourced from deep wells or shaded springs, a luxury of infrastructure that the poor could never claim. Tasting the finished recreation, the contrast is jarring. The elite splunctua, seasoned with honey and vinegar, the oxybophon, is a complex, aggressive explosion of flavor. It tastes of empire, of trade routes, and of a specialized labor class that existed solely to please a handful of palates. The boiled beef of the masses, by comparison, tastes of survival. This wasn't a shared meal, it was a physical reinforcement of the social ladder. Only the elite had the structural luxury of flavor. The rest had only the calories. As we step away from the cooling embers of the Kerameikos, the golden age of Athens looks different. The grand rhetoric of the funeral oration fades, but the taste of the hierarchy remains. We have seen how the Athenian state used the menu to perform a delicate balancing act, providing enough meat to satisfy the citizen soldiers' hunger while reserving the noble textures and exotic spices for the men who truly ran the democracy. This wasn't a failure of their system, it was the system itself. The autopsy is complete. By deconstructing this feast, we've revealed that the table was the primary site where the myth of equality met the reality of power. The labor of the nameless Migieroi, the scarcity of the Geron, and the carefully guarded Splanchua all point to a single truth. Pericles' Athens was built on the premise that power is something to be consumed. When the elite reclined and the masses stood, the meal didn't just reflect their social standing, it reinforced it with every bite. The VIP menu wasn't just a perk of office, it was the physical proof of who belonged at the center of the world. We don't just cook ancient food, we decode the civilizations behind them.